and welcome back to Pod 'em Up. This is the. I'm going to do that again because that was crap. What episode is this? It's
This is
episode four.
Episode 4, yeah.
Episode four. Okay, right. Right, take two.
All
Take
right,
two.
all right.
Welcome to Pod 'em Up, episode 4. I am Tibbs, and you are.
And I am Ollie. Sorry, I jumped in there too early.
That's fine. That's fine. We need to come up with like a snazzy intro. We really do. We always struggle with intros.
Yeah, we do.
Like a theme song or something.
It's really hard to introduce a podcast, as it turns out. I
It
didn't know,
is.
because you listen to other podcasts, it sounds so natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to come up with. Yeah, we need to sit down and come up with either a theme tune or like a set kind of thing that we say.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Sorry,
Anyway.
listeners.
Well, episode 4.
Episode 4.
I reckon it's a good one as well. I think we're both quite excited about the game where we've chosen for this month's show.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
yeah. But as usual, as has become tradition, let's have a quick chat about what we've been up to since the last show. Any gaming things we want to talk about? Other than our game of the month, what is it you've been playing mostly since the last show?
I've been playing quite a lot this month actually. I've sort of been gaming every night almost, which is pretty good actually. First of all, we should probably talk about a game that I know we've both been playing that's come out since the last episode, and that's Sonic Mania Plus.
Oh yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
In case you've been living under a rock or don't care about Sonic, this is the boxed version of the amazing Sonic Mania that was released last year. You can also get it as DLC, I believe.
I triple dipped on it. I got the Switch version, the PS4 version, and I upgraded the DLC on because the original Switch version I had when it came out was obviously digital only, so
Wow.
I upgraded the DLC on that. So
that's I can't match that. That's commitment. Yeah.
hopefully that will send it. It was unintentional. I'd pre-ordered
really?
it on both systems without realizing, and then they both arrived, and I thought, wow, okay, I might as well keep them both now.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
And with the DLC, I had some gold points from when your Switch games. You can get loyalty points, gold star things for.
Yeah, it's quite good, that, isn't it? Actually.
It's really good. But I've never used them on anything, and I had enough to get the DLC because it's only like £5, so I had enough in points to get the DLC. So
Awesome.
I got that as well. So hopefully that will send a message to Sega that more of this, please.
That's true. That is a very good point. It's probably worth doing that alone, just to sort of edge them towards more Sonic Mania and less Sonic Forces.
Yes, absolutely. It's a really nice package, though, isn't it?
It is. It's great, isn't it? The art booklet is really, really cool. It's got some
Really
lovely sort of official art and kind of production sketches. I love how all the sort of level design sketches were sort of emulating the old ones from, like, I think it's the old Japanese manuals.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Really lovely to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely
I
great.
will say I did prefer because the case for the physical copy comes with a reversible cover. So you've got like a classic Sega Genesis, Sega Mega Drive style cover for the game on the other side of the printed cover.
Yeah.
I did prefer the artwork that I saw for the Japanese release.
It did look cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I did prefer that one. I think did they get a soundtrack as well or something in there?
Yeah, they did. They did. I don't know. Yeah, and apparently, because previously the soundtracks they've released for the game officially have never included the Sonic 1 and 2 music.
Ah,
for usual reasons.
usual copyright stuff.
But I think the Japanese one, if I remember, if I had a look at the soundtrack list, this was when it was first announced, and I'm sure I saw Green Hill and Chemical Plant and Oil Ocean on there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's a good package all round. I mean, whichever one you get. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think I'll go as far as importing the Japanese
I
one, but
was tempted, but I didn't in the end.
but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really impressed with it. You know, they've really put the effort in on it.
yeah, they have. It's really good, and the actual added content is really good as well. I mean, first of all, you've got Ray the sorry, Ray the Flying Squirrel and
Just
Mighty the
fine squirrel.
Armadillo. And I guess if you're not like a hardcore Sonic fan, you could be forgiven for not knowing who the hell these characters are.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people probably know Mighty
Yeah.
from, they've seen him about in other things, but certainly Ray's a bit of a deep
Well,
cut.
Ray's only been in one game, and a fairly obscure one, and
Mm.
it's what's it even called? Sega Sonic
Sega Sonic the
the
Hedgehog.
Hedgehog. That's right. And I don't. I think I've kind of played that once, like emulated, and maybe the sound wasn't working or something. But I haven't.
I was going to say,
I
you
don't know
can
the game very well at all.
you can play it on MAME, but I
Mm,
think the original arcades controlled with a trackball.
that's right. Yeah.
So even if you play it on MAME, you're not really getting
Mm,
unless you've got a trackball set up on MAME.
mm,
But unless you're playing it with a trackball, I don't think you're really getting how it was intended to be played. But I think I've given it a go just out of curiosity. I don't think
yeah.
I spent very long on it.
No, it was a long, long time ago. Mighty was also in that, but then he also made it to Knuckles Chaotix as well, didn't he? So he's a
Yeah.
little bit more well known. But I
Yeah, and
mean,
he was in Sonic Heroes as well, wasn't he? Was
no,
he
he
part of,
wasn't. He
was
was
he
left out
not?
of. He was cut out.
Oh,
Yeah, the other Chaotix members made it, but he was not in Sonic Heroes, and he is a classic exclusive character, which is why, and along with
uh,
Ray, is like the last um, sort of classic characters that haven't been brought back. So I think that's why people have been sort of
yeah,
obsessed with bringing them back, even though they're quite obscure characters. And
yeah.
yeah, so but yeah, it's cool that they've brought them back. It's cool, that they've made use out of them. The things that they've done with them are pretty cool. I think the characters have some nice abilities that we haven't really seen before.
It
Uh,
took me a while. I think we spoke about it
mm,
briefly on Twitter, but
mm.
Ray's got this
It's sort of
gliding.
an odd gliding thing. It really
It's
takes a
like
while to get the
yeah,
hang of it. It wasn't until the tail end of the encore mode before I really understood how
yeah,
to use
same.
it properly. You've
I
sort
spent so long trying to get just over that. When you take control of him, you've got to get up onto like this high ledge.
mm,
I just couldn't get it. It was embarrassing how long it took for me to
I
actually
know.
get up there.
It took me quite a while as well. It's weird. You start gliding and he goes up a little bit and then he drops down very suddenly. And the
Yeah.
idea is that you move forward and back to sort of try and keep him in the air. That's kind of the gist I got of it anyway, really.
Yeah, that is, but yeah, like you can sort of swoop him down a bit and then pull up at the right
Yeah.
moment, and he'll sort of get a gust of
It
air getting
takes a
him
long
back
time to
up.
get it right, but
Yeah,
when you do, it's quite cool because you can kind of keep him going for quite a while, and
I'm gonna
it's
say
quite
it's
satisfying.
almost game breaking once you get the hang of it because you can glide so far across the
Yeah,
levels.
yeah,
It's quite
yeah. It's not
once you
like
get the knack of it.
I think it's not like Knuckles, where he sort of descends gradually. I think can you just sort of keep staying in the air? I haven't tried going really really far with him, but
You can go quite a distance, yeah.
mm,
I mean, I don't think there's. I don't know if there's like a hard-coded limit on like Tails can only fly for a certain time,
mm,
and Knuckles will always sort of descend. I don't know if there's that same sort of hard-coded limit to what Ray can do, but
mm.
you can certainly go for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Mikey's is interesting. He's quite a good character for a beginner, I think, because
Yeah,
he can defend against projectiles, and when he's spinning, you can land in spikes, and you
I was
won't
going to
get.
say he's got some defense against spikes
That's
as well.
right.
I think.
He uncurls, so if you fall in them again, you're in trouble. But
Mm.
it's got like that added protection against spikes, which is quite cool. He's got like a kind of smash, almost like a ground pound kind of move as
Yeah,
well, isn't he? Yeah. Yeah. So cool things that they've done with them, definitely. They haven't
yeah.
just, a mighty like I think they've designed him from scratch. He's not like a recolored Sonic,
I was going to
where
say
he
so.
sort of previously was in Knuckles
He was
Chaotix, wasn't he?
basically sort of a palette swap for a
He
while, wasn't
was,
he? But
yeah. Mm,
yeah, yeah, he's given him a bit more personality of his own on this one,
mm,
which is good.
yeah. Encore mode itself was really interesting. I thought.
I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's something I'll go back to as much as the normal
No,
mania mode.
no, I don't think I will as well. But it was
Do you want to explain how
yeah,
it kind of works?
yeah. Again, it took me a little while to figure out what was going on in this, but basically, you control two characters at once, don't you? And you
Yeah,
can switch between them. So it's kind of like Tails following Sonic as normal, but you can have any character following any other character. Um, but you get two at one time, but you can get up to three backup characters as well, and you get those by accessing the new bonus stage, the pinball bonus stage, which is quite cool.
which is quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has like a Knuckles Celtic thing where it's got like the grabber where you can try and if you get into the top of the pinball table, you you can sort of try and pick up the characters with this kind of grabber thing. And that's quite frustrating not getting it later on in the game where you really need characters and you just keep missing them. Yeah, but it's really good because if you lose a character, one of the backup ones will jump in, and then but there are no lives in the game in that.
I was going to say
that
the
mode,
characters are basically lives, aren't they?
yeah, they are. But you get continues in the special stages and the bonus stages. And I only lost a continue once, or lost all my characters once, and that was in Metallic Madness Act 1, I think. And when that happened, I was right at the end of it, and I went back to Act 1. So I don't know what happens if you lose them all and you don't have any continues. Did you encounter that at all?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't plow a lot of time into the encore mode. I don't think I got as far as Metallic Madness. I did.
Okay.
I got a few zones, but
Hmm.
yeah, I would. I don't know. I wouldn't say I disliked it, but I don't think it didn't grab me as much as the normal mania
Okay.
mode. And you can use Ray and Mighty in mania mode as
You
well.
can now, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I started a playthrough of from scratch with Ray,
Hmm.
just to work through that, and mainly just to see what Super Ray would be like. To be honest, but that's what's taken up most of my time with that so far.
Okay, fair enough. Have they? I was curious because I've mostly played Encore mode actually. I haven't. I think I've started a new game, just as Sonic and Tails. I think in the regular mode, but I haven't because they've added new level transitions. Certainly in Encore mode.
Yeah.
Are they still? Are they in the regular mode as well?
Yeah, all the level transition. I don't think there's a single level that doesn't have a transition into the next level now.
Ah, brilliant. Okay.
In all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are still a little bit. Um, I don't know. They're not really there for much of a reason. Like Hydra City
Yeah.
Zone.
That was weird. That
Um,
one.
yeah, that's a bit. It doesn't really explain. It doesn't really link much between the two levels.
Mm.
Whereas all the others tend to have, like, they'll hang glide from
Yeah, that was good. That one. Yeah.
flying battery down to somewhere, and there's always seemed to be like a logical progression from one zone to the next. But with
Yeah.
Hydra City, it was just kind of like there's a hole in the wall now, and they run through it. And
Yeah, and then they end up in the desert. They just.
yeah, yeah. So
Doesn't make much sense, that one. That's
doesn't
the
make
only one I
much
was
sense.
disappointed by, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I mean, all the other tweaks and improvements from Encore mode are all present and correct in
hmm.
Mania mode as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of tweaks to the level designs themselves in Encore mode. I was kind of expecting it to be just the regular gameplay, but hard mode, like hard
Yeah,
tweaks. There are lots of tweaks, but I think it's not those that add the difficulty to it. I think it's the character swapping functionality, really.
yeah, yeah. It is.
Yeah.
I didn't like that you can't really pick. Say if you've got all the characters on your roster there,
Mm.
you can't say your current two characters are Mighty and Tails.
Mm.
You can't choose to be Knuckles to get over a certain obstacle or something like
No.
that. You
It,
can't choose to be Sonic to speed through a section.
yeah, you can switch
Kind of,
between the two characters that you have, but you
yeah,
can't
and you
pick
can
it.
get boxes that will swap one
That's
out.
right.
Will swap you out with a random
Yeah,
character.
so it's possible, but you can't do it deliberately. It has to be
You
sort of
can't do it
random.
deliberately.
No, that is a bit annoying, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I can kind of see why they did it because I think part of the purpose is to kind of force you into using these characters that you wouldn't
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
have tried.
That's right.
And I think if you could just pick your own, you'd stick with your
You
favorites, and
Yeah,
that'd be
you'd leave
it.
the characters you don't like as just as backups and never use them. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah,
Mm.
I can see why they did it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, as a package as a whole, I mean, Sonic Sonic Mania on its own, I thought was a brilliant game.
Yeah,
There was very few criticism I had with it.
yeah.
So Sonic Mania Plus, I think it adds so much to the game.
Mm.
Little, I say so much. I mean, you're not going to get tons of new content, but it feels like a proper refresh of the
Yeah,
game.
they've made an effort with it, definitely. They've done
Yeah,
what they, you know.
and they're not rinsing you for it. I mean,
No,
if you're buying it brand new, it's I think it's down to like 20 quid
it's
now.
about
It's
20 quid.
25
Yeah.
quid, 25 when it came out. It's 20
Mm,
quid now.
mm.
It's if you had it previously, like I said, it's only £5 to update to the new version. So
Yeah, that's surprisingly cheap. That is compared to like the full physical version, isn't it? Just
it
five
really
quid. Yeah,
is.
yeah. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
bargain, really. There was one thing. It was sort of a little bit of a news story. There's cheats in the game. Did you see this?
Oh no, I didn't. No.
It's kind of like usual things like level select and all emeralds and stuff. But I don't believe they're in the original one.
No,
And
if it was, I didn't know about
I
it.
just thought it was interesting because when was the last time a game actually had proper coded, go to
Oh,
the
I
sound
know.
test kind of, or up, down, left, right kind of cheats? I can't remember the last game. It must have been years and years and years
I
ago.
know it's a dino. I remember specifically. I think it was. I can't remember. I say remember specifically, and then I'm going to be very vague. It was one of the WWE games. I think it was SmackDown versus Raw 2007 or 2008 on
Okay.
the Xbox.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking then, this is the death of cheats in games as we know it. When if you had to pay, I think it was £1.50 in Microsoft points to unlock all the characters. If you didn't want to play through the game and unlock all the like classic characters and all the wrestlers,
Yeah.
the only way you could do it was to buy a DLC. And I thought then, that's the death knell for cheats in games. Now they've realized they can just they could just charge you a quid
Yeah.
for what would have previously just been a combination or a password.
Mm.
That's going to be it. And I
Yeah.
think Capcom, even with one of the Dead Rising games, they did like big head mode and charged that as individual DLC
Yeah.
rather than
That's
having it built into a game. So
yeah. So
you're
what would
right.
have been a
It's
cheat beforehand is
yeah,
a
what would have
pay
been like
for
a
add-on.
silly
Yeah.
little code that you
Yeah.
would, input on the title screen to unlock big heads. Now it's, oh yeah, we'll have a quid for that, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's rare to have games with inbuilt cheats these days.
I mean, it's part of old school gaming in the sense that it was kind of tied to the limitations of the games, really, because these were games that didn't necessarily have save files.
No.
So it was kind of just a way of jumping back into a game, and sort of making it a bit easier, I suppose. I don't know when they're also really difficult quite a lot of the time as well.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And
it did make me wonder how are cheats? How do cheats come about? Are they discovered? Are they officially released by
I,
the
th- I
by the
think they
companies?
used to be officially released.
Yeah, because you have to
I
try every combination you could think of, wouldn't
I was
you?
going to say that. I mean, what are the chances? I mean, the Sonic One level select up, down, left, right, A, B, C start or A start.
A and start, yeah.
What are the chances of someone just stumbling across that by accident? Or the debug was up, C, down, C, left, C, right, C, wasn't it? You
I
know,
mean, I suppose you get there eventually, but
I
maybe
suppose
someone did. Maybe
eventually.
that's how they discovered it. It might be a combination of things, but some cheats are so specific, aren't they?
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, some cheats, I think they definitely people do just discover them.
hmm.
I think
I think these were discovered. I think I remember rightly. These Flight Main ones were discovered by someone,
I was
but
going to say
how they did it, I don't know.
well, the thing we've got today in games that we didn't have back then is data mining. Where people will just dump all the files from the game and
Hmm.
just pour through the source code and look at
Right.
the assets and sort of tear the game apart to try and
Hmm.
find things in there. And I
Hmm.
think that a lot of cheats and secrets and Easter eggs are found that way.
Hmm.
But I'm not saying no one was doing it back in the Mega Drive days, but I think you would need such specialist equipment. It
You
wasn't
would,
like
yeah.
any kid could just plug in the
You
computer and
probably have to
stuff.
be a Mega Drive developer yourself to be able to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, you know,
Yeah. I just thought that was quite an interesting thing, really.
yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to look into that.
Yeah, me too. I think I can't remember how you do it, but I think you have to unlock debug first, which is like it's not a cheat itself; it's an extra, isn't it?
Yeah, you get that by
Debugging.
playing the blue spheres, don't you?
Yeah.
I finished all the blue spheres on my when I was playing through the Ray playthrough,
Mm. Oh,
and
really? Wow.
Yeah, and I was pulling my hair out at the last one. I had
Oh
one more
God,
to
yeah.
do, and I was just doing it over and over
There
and
is one where
over.
I swear you have to kind of break it in order to do it, unless I was doing it completely wrong. I can't even remember what the formation was. This was last year
Yeah.
where it was, but I had to just like jump through all those bumpers and jump very carefully.
Oh, I think I've done that one as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
swear it's
wasn't
not
the one I was
possible other
stuck
ways.
on,
I
but
had looked at every possible way I could, and I could not figure out a way other than doing that. And it took me ages to get it right, even doing that.
oh, it was so frustrating.
Yeah.
And I heard, I think I was watching a review of Sonic Mania Plus, and it said that if you'd got all the blue spheres, then it would replace all the star posts would take you to the pinball stage instead.
Oh,
That
really?
didn't happen with me, but I'm
Oh.
wondering if that's because you had to get gold on them all for that to happen.
Oh,
I
so you
didn't
haven't
get
done the
gold on
gold?
all of them.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I've got gold on like two-thirds of them, but some of them
Yeah,
I've only got the silver, and I'm wondering if that's probably what that is. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I jumped through that ring post after getting, all I'd completed them all and got all the blue spheres and jumped through that ring post and it took me to another blue sphere and my heart just sank. I was like,
Yeah.
oh
Oh
no, no,
no. There's
no.
so many of them. They just kind of they get you
I
down
know.
after a while, don't they? Those. As
I
much
know,
as
like
as much as I love them, I'm glad that they brought them back. But
how
yeah,
many was there in Sonic when you plugged Sonic and One into Sonic and Knuckles? Wasn't there like 2 billion
something like that. Yeah,
procedurally generated ones or
it is
something?
something insane. But they're all made up of sort of recurring parts, aren't they? In order to do
Yeah,
it, so once you play through a few of them, you start to notice the same bits, don't you?
yeah.
Anyway,
But yeah, all in all, yeah. So a really good package. I was
really good
really,
package.
really
Yeah,
pleased with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I've played through Encore mode, and I want to get back to it. Now that I'm done with our book club pick, I'll play a little bit
Yeah,
tomorrow possibly.
yeah.
Other than that, I've been in RPG world. I've
Oh, me too.
oh good. I've acquired Xenoblade Chronicles 2,
Ah, ha,
following your
ha.
footsteps. It was a
Yeah.
lovely anniversary gift, a surprise anniversary gift from my wife. Yeah, it's really good actually. But I'm about 3 or 4 hours in. I think I've just done the bit where you find the red-headed girl. I'm not sure what her name
Yeah.
is. And sort of up until then, it's all been nice and tutorial, and it's like, oh yeah, you got to do this and do this. Oh right, okay, and it's all nice, and the battle system was easy to understand. And then
Yeah.
suddenly, like the battle system goes, right, you can do this and you can do this, and I go, whoa, 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 what? And then
I
suddenly
know.
my head starts spinning a bit.
Yeah.
And I remember when we spoke about it before, you said I think at that point, 30 hours in, you still weren't sure that you fully understood the battle mechanic. I can imagine.
I
I
know.
can see
Literally,
that. Yeah.
the door. There's like a door you have to pass through to get to the final boss,
Mm.
and it was still giving me tutorials
Yeah.
about what I need to do to get through certain doorways and things like
It's a
that. And it's
very
like,
tutorial
oh,
heavy
this
game.
is
Yeah.
really, yeah, really heavy. But
Yeah. I like it though. I like the
it's
general.
yeah, the characters are really charming and likable for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the music in it as well. It's that
Yeah,
proper. Do you know what? It seems like a lot of the time, the only people still doing sort of gamey soundtracks are the Japanese games.
yeah,
A lot of other a lot of other developers, while the soundtrack is still good in terms of it fitting the game and it sort of creating the atmosphere and everything, it's not stuff that I would want to take away and listen to separately.
no,
And I,
it's more like a movie score than
it
it
is,
is
yeah,
a video game soundtrack.
yeah. I mean, and a lot of these Japanese games, I found it with Gravity Rush 2, which I played briefly as well. They've got these great sort of orchestral kind of rock, like really awesome blood pumping, kind of
Yeah,
soundtracks, and I heard it quite a bit in this already, in the brief time I've spent with it. So it's yeah. I mean, I sort of collect game music and listen to it quite a lot. So I think I'll be getting this soundtrack
mm.
from what I've heard of it so far.
Yeah. It's a really good little game.
Mm.
The like I say, I didn't finish it. I
Yeah,
did. My patience kind of ran out with it, literally on the final boss fight, which is a shameful thing to say, but it's more my shortcomings in the games. I'll say that much.
okay, yeah. I'm not going to pressurize myself because it's such a long game. I'm not going to pressurize myself to complete it necessarily.
No.
I'm going to take my time with it. I'm going to sort of do, side quests here and there. I'm going to sort of see how far I get with it, really.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to compare it to the other RPG I've been playing, which is still Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
In that, Chrono Trigger is quite sort of basic, not in a bad sense, but in a kind of, there were no tutorials whatsoever so far for
No.
that. It's literally like, you know, in the battle, you've got the attacks, etc. And it's really like attack, use your special moves, use your combo moves when all the characters are available. That's kind of it so far, anyway.
Yeah.
And it just kind of shows how far RPGs have come in the sense that each one is adding new things, and by the time you get to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, there's so much other stuff to complicate it.
Definitely, yeah.
It's fascinating to compare them, really.
Which is an interesting segue, I suppose, because the RPG I've been playing a lot this month has been released since the last show, is Octopath Traveler.
Ah, yes,
which is very much a return back to basics.
Yeah, I played the demo quite a while back. I did enjoy it. I didn't finish it, but that's more because I had to put it down for some other reason, and I didn't go back to it. But yeah, I'm interested to hear what you think about that.
It's good. It's a really good game. It's very back to basics. It's very stripped back in terms of, it doesn't bog you down with lots of different combat styles. You get to grips with the battle system after your first 2 or 3 encounters, and you learn the basics that you learn in there underpin the rest of the game. I mean, there's various nuances and different tactics you can take, but you get the foundations of it in your first 2 or 3 battles, and then that sets you up for the rest of the game, basically. And it's just a really laid back kind of RPG storytelling experience. It's it really is just a focus on telling a good story. There's a high level of random battles. It is very old school in that sense.
Yeah,
you won't go more than sort of 2 or 3 steps without having a random encounter.
Do you see the enemies like in Chrono Trigger, or they just appear? Yeah.
No, they just appear. It's very old fashioned.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say about it, because the name Octopath Traveler comes from the fact that it's based around these 8 different characters, and they've got eight different classes. You get like a medic and a thief and a warrior, and they've each got their own sort of job class that they bring to the table, and they've each got their own story that spans a number of chapters, and the game wants you to go around and encounter all 8 of the characters and build your party out of the characters that you meet. And they've all got, well, all the ones I've encountered so far, I haven't got all 8 yet. I think I've got 6 of the characters so far. They're all really interesting characters. They've all got these nice backstories, and you each time you meet one, you find out about their background and what's motivating them and what their mission is. There isn't much interaction between the characters, though. It's kind of like, I wanted it to be they'd each have their own story, but as the game progressed, you'd find out that they sort of intertwined some way, and there was some unifying unifying antagonist or problem that they would have to face, and you'd realize that somehow all their separate stories actually had a common thread through them, and there isn't really any of that. It's kind of here's 8 characters with 8 stories, and occasionally they might discuss it with each other between levels, and that's basically it. That there doesn't seem to be any sort of grand scheme that's going to be unveiled as the game goes on, and I think that's a bit disappointing. I would have liked to have seen some grander overarching plot, but
it's a bit of a missed trick, isn't it, really?
It is. It is. And I it's been selling gangbusters in Japan. I mean, they've been selling out, and Square Enix have been sort of apologizing and putting out statements saying that they're working hard to get more copies printed, and so I think they really underestimated the demand for a classic old school RPG like that. I think it's the same with Sega with Sonic Mania. I think they genuinely were taken by surprise that people still wanted old school games like that.
Yeah. I mean, you see it with lots of, I think, Crash Bandicoot. That's been phenomenally successful. I don't know how much they expected that or not, but it has. It just shows how big retro is now, really.
I know. I mean, to us, it seems really obvious that these games that we played growing up we didn't play them because we didn't like them.
Yeah,
You know,
we didn't play them because that's all we had, and we were just waiting
yeah,
for the next best thing. We played them because we liked them,
we
and
played them because they were good games,
yeah,
and we still want good games.
yeah,
You know,
I know they're still good
but
games, no matter regardless of what's come since. Some games
yeah.
have aged badly, but a lot of them haven't, and a lot of them are
Yeah,
still
and it
valid.
seems to come as a complete surprise
I know.
to the executives in charge of these companies.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
hopefully with like you say, with Crash Bandicoot, with Sonic Mania, with Octopath Traveler,
yeah.
hopefully the message is going to get through,
I
and
think it is. There's that
we'll
Spyro
see a few
collection coming
more.
out as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Have you heard about the drama surrounding that?
I haven't. No, do tell.
If you buy the physical copy,
Yeah.
only the first game is included on the disc, and
What?
Spyro 2 and 3 are available as downloads.
To paid for?
No, no,
Okay, so
no.
you can just download them. Why?
Yeah, they're like they haven't really given actual response.
That doesn't make
There's
sense.
the
Why?
two prevailing theories is that either it's a move to stop to counter the second-hand market, so you'd only get the 2 and 3 included if you buy it brand new, which I don't know. I think the industry got past the whole online pass kind of stuff a few years ago. I think they realized that didn't really work.
Yeah.
The second theory is that the games aren't finished yet, and they weren't finished in
Right.
time
By
to
the
go
time
gold.
they get it on the disc. Mm,
Yeah. I think that's the more likely of the two
quite
reasons,
possibly,
but
yeah.
you know, just delay it a month.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't buy a physical copy of the game because you want a download. You buy the
No,
physical copy
exactly.
because
You
you
want the
want the
whole
physical
thing.
copy.
This
Yeah,
this was the same. I haven't played it, but it's Street Fighter Five when it first came out, wasn't it? It was had like hardly anything on the disc. Is that right?
Oh, that is a slightly different situation, but
Yeah,
yeah, same thing.
yeah,
Street Fighter Five was bare bones as anything. It
yeah,
had no arcade mode.
yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely bare bones,
Mm.
and a lot of it was. I mean, there's a physical copy now, Street Fighter Five Arcade Edition, which is a complete package. But
Yeah, I want to
for
get around to getting
years,
that actually. Mm.
for years you could, it was you got the bare bones thing, and then you had to download updates to
Yeah,
pad it out.
it's such a slap in the face for sort of forward thinking, and when this console becomes a retro console, and the
Hmm.
online servers aren't there anymore. Although they haven't really been
Exactly.
taken down yet as far as the previous
They
ones are
haven't, but I
concerned.
mean,
But
we've
they
we've
they
got
may well be at
we've
some
got
point.
precedent for it already. I mean, PlayStation Mobile. There's a series of games that were for the Xperia Play, which was like a mobile phone, and you slid it open and it had
Mm,
the PlayStation controller.
mm,
And they did a specific set of PlayStation Mobile games that you could download and play on the handset.
all right.
Um, you can't get those legally anyway now. All the PlayStation Mobile servers have been shut down.
Mm,
As far as I'm aware, the only people preserving those games now are pirates.
yeah, exactly.
If there's just no way for you to get these games anymore. And I
Mm,
think it's naive to think that as big as the PlayStation 4 is, that one day they're not going to shut down the servers for that as well. And
yeah,
all these games that are digital only are
yeah,
going to be gone.
yeah.
It's,
Well, as long as you
it's
keep them on your hard drive, but I mean,
well, yeah,
it's not safe,
yeah.
is it? Really, it's not. Doesn't
It
preserve it.
doesn't
Doesn't make it
preserve it at
easily
all.
accessible for everyone else.
No. No,
It's
I'm really disappointed about it personally. I had
yeah,
it pre-ordered. I've cancelled my pre-order
right.
because my hope is it's going to follow a similar pattern to Crash Bandicoot, where it's going to come out on PlayStation and PlayStation first, and say 6 months, a year down the line, it's going to come to Switch.
Is that only on
There's
PS4 currently? Is that right?
PS4, Xbox, and PC.
Okay. So they might
Switch
do
is the only one.
the Switch
Yeah, there's
version.
been a few leaks that suggest it's going to be coming down the pipe at some point.
Right.
And I'm hoping that the Switch version will be complete and everything will be on the cartridge. It's not going to look as good graphically as the PlayStation 4 release, but I'm willing to make that trade-off if I can just get the 3 games that I've paid for.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know,
Just on the cartridge in that case, just forever.
yeah,
You got it there. Then as long as you've
yeah,
got a Switch, you'll have the game. It's simple.
exactly. And it's I don't know. Maybe we're just old, but
Well, the thing with
I
it is,
I'm just against this whole digital only future
I
that they're
mean,
trying to
even
foist on
worse,
us.
streaming only. would be
Oh
even worse
gosh.
because then you don't actually have anything physically anywhere, as
And
in
it
on
doesn't
anything.
work. It
No,
just doesn't work.
no.
I don't know if we've discussed this before, but I went to the Eurogamer convention a few years ago. I can't
Hmm.
remember when it was now. It's like 4 or 5 years
Yeah, I've
ago.
been to a couple of those, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and the year I went, it was On Live, which was this streaming
Yeah.
only console,
Yes, I
and
remember. Yeah.
they had a big thing there, and they were a big presence at the show, and everyone who attended, they gave a free On Live console, as like some promotional thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I got it, and I didn't actually get one there and then because they were in such high demand. I got given a token, and I had to pay £1 to have one posted to me afterwards, which was fine.
Yeah.
Um, and I used that for a bit. I plugged that in and tried the whole game streaming thing, and it had its merits, but it just doesn't work very reliably.
Hmm.
Sonic 1 was unplayable. Sonic 1 was completely unplayable because of the input lag.
Right.
And I thought that was just ridiculous. You
Yeah.
know, we're talking about a game from 1991, and I can't play it in 2012 or 14 or whenever it was because of, all this hardware and input lag and streaming it across the
Jesus.
internet. And
Yeah.
the one time I did have a really good time with it, and I think it gave a really good glimpse of that it had something going for it. Apologize for the coughing. It's very dry atmosphere, and I get a bit of a tickly throat. Um, with On Live, you could any time you were playing, you could go to like a hub menu and you could jump in and view anyone else who was playing a game at the same time. So
Okay.
if you were playing at peak time, you just had like thousands of other people, and you could just dip in and see what the games they were playing. And if you had a microphone, you could talk to the person playing and they could talk back. And there was one time I jumped in, there's someone playing one of the Tomb Raider games.
Hmm.
And there was these two girls. They sounded like they were about sort of 16 or 17, and they'd obviously hooked up a microphone. And they were just giving this really funny commentary. I can't remember what they were saying. They were just commenting on some random person's game. And it was really funny. It was just really entertaining to watch. And they're just riffing off of this person's gameplay, and that kind of thing. I thought, there's
That's
something,
quite cool. I mean,
they're onto something there. There's a nugget of a good idea somewhere. But the
yeah.
whole, the whole streaming thing in general was a waste. I mean, On Live were charging full retail price for games. So at the time, I think the new Deus Ex game was one of the big releases at the time, and they were charging like £49 for that if you wanted to quote unquote buy it for On Live.
Hmm.
And when the service shut down, because On Live is obviously not a thing anymore. All the consoles that they gave out of
Yeah.
paperweights now, they
Yeah.
can't use them for
So
anything.
you bought that game on there and you can't play it anymore.
You can't play it. You got no refund, as
It's
far as I'm
ridiculous,
aware.
isn't it?
It's just gone. So
Yeah.
imagine if you'd have invested in a library of that, and sorry, the company's
Yeah, exactly. You're
bankrupt now.
putting all of your faith. I mean, it's similar to anything. It's similar to Netflix and anything like that, I suppose. But with games, it's more important because you're putting so much money in because they're more expensive.
Yeah,
And
it just seems so
if the company
volatile.
goes, that's it. You lost your games.
Yeah,
You can't play. They're not downloaded anywhere. They come through the internet live, and they can't do that anymore. It's gone.
no,
It's just I worry
yeah,
about the
I do
future if
worry.
that's the way it goes,
Yeah,
and I don't
yeah.
think it's able to do it yet, but maybe in the future. I don't know.
I was gonna say, I don't. I think the next generation will be fine. I think the next
Yeah.
generation we're going to be with physical media for at least one more generation. But
Mm.
looking past that, it's a bit hazy. I don't know.
See, I don't like getting into anything that I can't be sure that I'm going to be able to keep. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, and
Yeah,
same for online games. I don't really get into online games, partly because I don't really like them anyway, but partly because I know one day those servers are going to go down. I can't play that game anymore. And I just
yeah.
I don't like getting into something that I will not be able to play. 10 years from now.
And in a more pragmatic sense, I just don't have very much money. You know? If it all goes pear shaped, I can't afford to buy it all again.
Exactly. Imagine, you've got your collection, your physical collection, and someone just takes it away and says, "No, you can't have that anymore." And you have to
Oh,
buy it all over again. That's
it would
just,
break me.
it
It
would,
would break
yeah.
me.
Of course it would. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I have actually had a console banned.
Mm,
My PlayStation 3 and
mm.
my PlayStation account in general was banned because I like to mess around. I mean, we've spoken before. I like to do sort of mods and
Yeah,
repairs on consoles and things like that.
yeah.
And I was experimenting with a new custom firmware exploit on the PlayStation 3,
Mm.
and I stupidly left my ordinary account on there, and I signed in. They detected I was using a custom firmware
Yeah,
and banned my account,
yeah.
and I lost all my PlayStation games, digital games that I'd bought since I bought the PS3.
See,
Um,
that's crap
everything
because
was
you've
gone.
paid for those games. They should be
Yeah,
yours. You know,
yeah.
regardless of what you do.
I mean, by all means, ban me, ban the console from going online,
Yeah.
and give me an account suspension or something like that. But they took all my PlayStation games, all my PSP games, my Vita games,
Oh my God.
everything digital basically that I bought in all the years, and they wouldn't
Jesus.
have any of it. They said custom firmwares against the terms of service on your bike, and so.
Mm,
I've been burned by that before.
mm.
Admittedly, of my own doing, I was stupid, and hold my hands up. That's fine.
Yeah, but it still sucks, doesn't it?
It still
It's
sucks, and
still.
it does show the volatility of relying on
Yeah,
a digital only ecosystem.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
So I think we've had quite a.
That probably went on longer than we expected, but that's all right. That's quite good. I think
It's
that
good.
needs to be said. That kind of stuff.
Yes,
Definitely.
yeah. If we can't get on our soapbox about
Yeah.
digital distribution on our own podcast, then
Well,
what
it's something
can
we
we do?
both feel passionate about, so we need.
It
You know,
is, it is, and I'm passionate about it because I love games,
yeah,
and I want them to be preserved. I want
yeah,
to. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever have kids, but if I do, I want to be able to say to them, "Look, here's all the games that I played when I was a kid,"
yeah.
and have them still be able to do it without
I
having to
know.
worry about, oh, is it online? And
I fully plan to do that with Alice, my daughter. I'm going to sit her
Yeah,
down one day. I'm
exactly.
going to sit her down in my game room. Right, we're going to go through every single one of these games, and you're going to appreciate them.
You're not leaving
You're
until
not
you've
leaving
played.
until you've completed Sonic 2 with emeralds.
But I want to go see my friends, not until
No.
we've completed the PlayStation library.
Yeah.
Generation 5 to 6 today, 7 to 8 tomorrow. But no, it is. I think it is important that future generations, as soppy as it sounds and as sappy as it is, future generations should be able to look back
Yeah.
and play the games that we've played, and that the formative parts of the art form.
Yeah.
Imagine if no one could go back and watch Citizen Kane today. If a media studies class or a film studies class couldn't watch any Stanley Kubrick films anymore because the servers had gone down and they weren't accessible anymore. It'd be detrimental to film as a discipline, as an art form.
Well, you can't look back. You have to look back.
Yeah.
I mean, look how big nostalgia is at the moment. It's only big because we can go back,
Yeah.
and we can revitalize, and we can look at that source material. If we can't do that anymore, I don't know. It'd be sad. It'd be a sad world.
Yeah, you're losing all that progress and all the things that shaped the industry into what it is today. So, should we take a much needed break?
Yeah.
I'm going to get a glass of water so I'm not coughing all through the second half of the show. And we shall come back where we're going to be discussing our book club of the month. Your choice
My
was
choice, Klonoa.
Klonoa, Daughter Phantomile, on the original PlayStation. I think we're both quite looking forward to talking about this one.
Definitely.
So, we'll take a quick break and we'll be back after this where we're going to talk about Klonoa.
Okay.
welcome back. Part two.
Part two. Part
of
deux.
the show. Part two. Yeah, so add a bit of continental
Part
flavour
deux
to
for French,
proceedings.
for French listeners,
For the French listeners out there.
of which there are many.
Yes. I was actually, speaking of listeners, we got some really nice feedback from the last show. I can't remember if we got it before we recorded the last show or we got it afterwards. I just didn't get time to mention it.
It was after we recorded, but before we put the previous episode up.
Yeah. But yeah, it was really, really nice. I really appreciate the comments. That's awesome.
Yes, it was from someone, I don't have the name. I think his name was Rom. The screen name was Rom. But he had some lovely words to say. So thank you very much, Rom, if that is indeed your name.
Yes, a thoroughly good egg.
Yes. So hopefully, slowly but surely, we'll get a little bit more.
Yeah. It's really good. It's just really nice to hear people are enjoying it. So
it's great to hear anything. If anyone's got any constructive criticism as well, we'd love to hear it. Because we want to make this as good as we can.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I was particularly conscious. I hope no one. I'm going to mention it now, and everyone's going to hear it. But my chair creaking in the last episode. I'm using the same chair today. I can hear.
I mean, I heard that, but I haven't heard it so far, and I didn't hear it the previous episode, so I don't know.
That's because I've positioned myself. I'm sitting just forward, right on the edge of the chairs.
Are you comfortable?
No, not at all. But the only other chair I've got that I could use creaked just as much in a different way. So
you need new chairs.
I'm gonna have to sort it out in time for the next show. But for now, I apologise for any creaks and groans in the background.
I'm a bit concerned I might have been producing some earlier as well. But we'll solve these gradually.
Yeah, we'll get a proper studio together sometime, and we'll be fine. Cheers.
Yeah, eventually.
So, our game of the month, your choice was Klonoa.
Yes.
Being that it was your choice, do you want to just give us a bit of background? What is it, and what made you choose it? Actually?
Well, this is a lovely little platformer for the PlayStation 1, developed and published by Namco, and it was released in. Sorry, I'll just go through these bits first before I say why I chose it. For some reason, don't know why. Released in December 1997 for Japanese, March 1998 for the US, and June 1998 for us in Europe. I don't know. I think I've always been kind of aware of it, and I put it on my Pi a little while ago, and my wife recognised it. She used to play it quite a lot. So she was kind of playing it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a really cool game." And I played it a bit for this podcast. I think I played the first level, and it just seemed like one I always wanted to get back to. That's just seemed like, and I knew it was quite well respected. I think I'd heard a sort of a talk about it on another podcast where they really, really raved about it. I think it was like their game of the year. So I just I thought it was a great choice, really.
Yeah, it was a really great choice. It's a game that's, I consider it a really special game to me. It's I've got quite a long history with it, I suppose, because going back. I mean, like you say, when the release date would have been about 1998, I think you said, wasn't it?
June.
We were in secondary school then, and I didn't have a great time in secondary school. I did find I had, a bit of a rough time of things. And I did use video games a lot as a, sort of an escape, a coping mechanism, whatever you want to call it. When I got home, bad day at school, come home and I'd, chuck on a game and sort of try and figure out about things. Yeah. And Klonoa came on. I never had the full game when I was a kid because I just didn't have money to buy new games at the time. But I did get the official PlayStation magazine, and that was the month that came out. I think it was on the same demo disc as Gran Turismo, which was the big game, another sort of AAA game that was coming out at that time. And I just played that demo disc to death. Like every night I would be playing that same, because it was quite a long level. It gave you like the whole first level, the final boss, not the final boss, the boss of that level. Um, and it's quite a chunky little demo. It gave you basically the whole first chapter of the game.
Yeah, demo
I
discs were great, weren't they? Really,
They were really great
they were
back
so
then.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just played that, and I became so familiar with it over the years.
Mm.
When I eventually was able to buy it, it already had a very sort of personal meaning to
Yeah.
me. I think I always,
Yeah.
I was very attached to that game and the character, and so yeah, it's just it holds a special place in my heart. Really,
When
it's a really
when did you finally get it?
years later,
Okay.
unfortunately. Because yeah,
I was going to
at
say
the
that.
time when it was already starting to inflate in value.
Right. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's one of those things about demo discs. There's always the ones that got away in the demo discs, aren't there? The
Yeah.
ones you played to death back in the day, but you never actually bought. And
No. Yeah.
you kind of get
Oh,
once you
there's
get back into collecting again, you kind of like, oh, I've got to get that because I always wanted that game.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I played the remake. I jumped on the remake that they did for the Wii
Mm.
as soon as it came out, and
Mm.
that was it's a really really good remake. But
Yeah, it looks it. Mm.
it's just a fantastic game. I was really drawn into it. I saw parallels into it. I guess not parallels so much, but I think I at the time everything the whole gaming landscape was moving towards 3D platformers and
Yeah.
sort of graphics, not necessarily graphics over gameplay, but certainly finding excuses to demonstrate the power of consoles compared to the previous generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Klonoa seemed to be something that I was really missing from the old generation, which is just a good, straightforward platform game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it just filled a gap that I'd really been missing since the Mega Drive
Mm.
days.
It's an interesting point because it's kind of um, how to put it. It doesn't want to show off about it. It's kind of using the modern technology really, really well, but it's not like a glorified tech demo. It's they
No,
wanted to build a real core game in there using traditional mechanics rather than kind of messing around with new mechanics that end up not really working. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. We should say it's a 2.5D game, isn't it?
It is
So
a
it's
2.5D game, which is a term I'm not never really been that thrilled about. But in this
no,
case, I think it really works because it's a mixture of polygonal and sprites
yeah.
done really, really well. And it makes sense for the time as well because if you were to do it wholly polygonal, it wouldn't look as good.
No, it wouldn't look nearly as good. And
No.
there's something really, I think we mentioned Octopath Traveler earlier in the show.
Similar.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a certain charm to pixel art and
Mm.
pixel characters that I'm not saying that 3D polygonal characters can't have charm or character to them, but I don't know, I just find something particularly appealing about really well done pixel art and 2D pixel characters, and I
Yeah.
think combining them with a 3D environment like Octopath does and like Klonoa does, it's just a really nice mix when it's done well.
Yeah. I mean, they can get more detail in there for one thing. That you wouldn't have been able to at the time with wholly polygonal characters. I think
Mm.
these look like they've been pre-rendered. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think that'd be fair to say. I
Mm.
think that, yeah, it definitely does. I don't know if they were, but it definitely does have a pre-rendered kind of style to it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that graphical style has aged really well compared to other PS1 games.
Oh,
I
definitely.
think the style that they've sort of textured the polygons in, sort of that cartoony style, not trying to be realistic, works really well. And the
Hmm.
sprites themselves, again, they look great.
Well, I think that the remaster they did for the Wii, if you compare them side by side,
Mm.
it's not like the upcoming Spyro remaster where it's like night and day the difference
No,
between them.
no, it
It's
isn't.
kind
No.
of just like smoothed off a few of the rough
It's a nice
edges.
lick of paint, isn't it? You can know that you notice there's a
Yeah.
difference, definitely, but
You
it's
notice a difference, but it's not like it's not a completely different game
no, it
because
isn't. No,
it didn't need to be.
no,
All it needed was just a little bit of like you say, just a lick of paint to bring it up to slightly modern standards. But
yeah,
it held up so well that they really didn't need to do much to it to remaster it,
no,
quote unquote.
no. Since you're so familiar with the game, why don't you tell us a little bit about, you know, the character and the world and what he can kind of do?
Well, I'm familiar with it, but I'm not entirely sure what he is.
Yeah, this is a point I wanted to bring up as well. What is he?
I think I've always thought of him as a cat
Yeah,
with
that
long
seems to be the
ears.
overriding opinion. He's some sort of cat-like creature. At first, I
Yeah,
thought he might be a dog because he had a big collar,
yeah,
and at one point, one of the characters was referred to him as a mouse. So I thought, okay, he's a
yeah.
mouse.
He's a
But
mouse,
then
but he doesn't really have any mousy features, does
no,
he?
so he doesn't look like any particular type of animal. Really, he looks like a
No.
made-up animal. But
Yeah, when I first played it, I assumed he was a cat. I thought he was a cat with long
mm,
ears and he can
mm,
flap his ears and glide a bit, which in video game land is a perfectly acceptable
yes,
thing for a cat to do.
of course.
Um, so yeah, he's in actually yeah, I think the Japanese, the original game that we're talking about in England and well in the West, it was called Klonoa Door to Phantomile.
Mm,
In Japan, it was my pronunciation is going to be terrible, but it was called Katsei no Klonoa Door to Phantomile, which it translates as Klonoa of the Wind, um, which I suppose relates to his big flappy ears
mm.
and the way he can sort of control he can not really control the wind, but I suppose there's lots of wind elements in the game. But anyway, you're this cat, you go around and you can capture enemies and inflate them.
Yes, which
So
sounds like
there's
an
these
odd
little,
thing,
yeah,
but
it does sound like an odd thing.
as a game mechanic, it works very well. I
Yeah,
think.
you sort of capture them, you inflate them in the same way, like if you imagine Kirby when he inflates himself, that's
Mm,
kind of what the enemies look like.
yeah.
And you can, once you've captured them, you can hold them in this inflated state, and you can either use them as a projectile weapon, or you can use them to throw at things in the environment to unlock switches or
Yeah.
capture items,
They use them
or
in
you
quite a
can.
lot of versatile ways throughout the game, I find.
Yeah, or you can use it for extra height as well. You can jump and then jump. You
So
can
double,
jump in the air
yeah,
and then use it as a double
it's
jump,
a double
like
jump,
a
yeah.
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 So yeah, and that's basically it. You find a mysterious pendant, and it leads you on a quest to save Laphise, the songstress of rebirth, I believe it is,
Mm.
if
It's
my memory's correct.
there's an I didn't I found the story a little bit difficult to follow while playing it, but in reading about it, it's sort of like a dream world, isn't it? Where
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a world where all the dreams of real people get collected
yeah,
and
Phantomile
sort of
is yeah.
yeah, Phantomile. And there's a bad dude called Gadius,
Gadius, yeah,
who wants to turn them all into nightmares or something like that, isn't it? He
yeah.
wants to release a nightmare beast or something. Anyway, something like that.
It's one of those games where the story isn't really why you're playing.
No, it isn't. Having said that, there were some interesting mature twists to it.
Yes.
One in particular, where I don't know if I should spoil it or not. You probably know
I
what I'm.
don't. Yeah, yeah, I don't know how I feel about
No.
spoilers, 'cause,
Okay.
particularly for the game that we'll get to that I'm going to pick for
Okay.
next show.
Yeah.
When we come to discuss that, spoilers are going to be a thorny issue. So I don't know what we want to make our
As it,
stance on spoilers would
I
be.
think yeah, true. Let's just well, okay, let's leave it at that. There's the story is at least a little in a couple of points in the game. It's a little becomes a little bit more mature and a little bit more emotional than you might be expecting from the game
I
as you
think
look
that's
at
fair
it.
to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the game looks very, very cute. It looks almost too cute for some, you could say.
I've heard that because it didn't sell very well when it first came out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've heard commentary because it seems like an odd synchronicity that since you picked this as the game,
Mm.
quite a few big YouTubers suddenly did videos on Klonoa and the Klonoa series and its history and things like that.
Mm.
Not that I'm suggesting that they listened to the show and thought that was a good idea, but it
Yeah,
is
well.
one. But it is one of those sort of synchronicity things where a lot of people suddenly have the same idea and go
That's
like, "Wow,
interesting.
yeah, it's quite
That's weird,
interesting.
considering this game has been available for 20 years.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
bit
it
odd.
is.
Yeah,
It's odd timing,
yeah.
but a lot of the discussion around the lack of popularity of the game at the time has been that maybe audiences found it a little bit too cutesy and uh, a bit too Japanese. I've heard some
I
people saying.
think, particularly on the PlayStation, the general move was to be more going to more realistic worlds and sort of grown-up games, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was trying to be very. The marketing was very edgy and very,
And
modern and grown up, wasn't it?
given that, you can see how a game like this wouldn't have stood out to a lot of people,
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah, definitely.
Having said
I
that,
mean,
it's still as suitable to as any other game to sort of kids and the younger generation. So, that it could still have made an impact on them.
yeah, I
And the
mean,
PlayStation was popular with everyone. So,
yeah,
mm,
look, I love the PlayStation. I love it like it was my own child. But there's some absolute bilge on that system. There's some terrible,
well,
terrible.
you can say it about any system that's truly popular, can't you? The
You
PS2, the
can.
Wii, the DS. There's wherever popularity appears, crap games will follow.
Yeah,
It's just the way it
yeah.
is, isn't it?
And I mean, I always try and take the stance that even the crappiest game is always going to have something going for it. There's very few games where there isn't some redeeming quality of some
Even if
kind.
it's
But
just to laugh at it.
yeah, yeah, there's always something you can take from it.
Yeah.
But you know, even if people were going to dismiss it as that's a kids game, even in the realm of kids games on the PlayStations, it was head and shoulders above
Mm.
most of the other children aimed games out there. So
Oh yeah.
even for that realm, I don't know why, I'll buy it for my kid to play, or I'll buy it for my little sister to play, or whatever.
Mm.
I'm still, it's disappointing it didn't get the love it deserved.
Yeah. 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 It's yeah. Go on.
No, no, I mean I don't know if I can add much more to it than that
Mm.
in terms of the fact it was so overlooked. I'm glad it's getting a resurgence in awareness now.
Mm.
More people are going to pick it up and have a go at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a cheap game, but at the moment it's not super expensive either. I think
No,
you can pick it up for what 60, 70 quid
60 or 70
ish.
quid, and I did put a little tweet out there.
Yeah.
If you do have the capability to play imported games, you can get the Japanese version for about 15 quid.
Mm.
And the only difference is the character names are in Japanese. All the text of the game, all the menus, every is perfectly playable without any language
It's
barrier.
great, that isn't it?
It's amazing.
Mm.
It's just that in the text boxes, Klonoa's name and Hupo's name and all the characters will all be in Japanese. But
So
if
by
you can work around that,
default, all the text is in English.
yes,
How
yes.
do the Japanese people understand it?
Well, I think most Japanese people speak English.
Hmm.
I think they do.
Okay.
Because I remember reading most of the Japanese, because there's a game Omega Boost, which was by Polyphony Digital, who are most famous for Gran Turismo.
Hmm.
They did a game Omega Boost, which is like a space robot shoot 'em up thing. That's another example of a game. If you buy that over here, if you want the Western release, you're looking at about 50 or 60 quid for a copy in good condition. The Japanese one is 100% in English from start to finish. There's like one Japanese subtitle on the intro sequence.
Mm.
The rest of it, start to finish, is all English,
Yeah.
and you can buy the Japanese version for about 10 quid if it's in average condition, 15 quid if you want it in good
Yeah.
condition.
There's a
You
few
know,
other
so
examples like that, isn't it? I can't think of it off
yeah,
the top of my head. Some of the
yeah,
Saturn ones, I think.
oh, definitely. Yeah, there's some really good ones on the Saturn.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember reading because Resident Evil, all the voice acting is in English on the Japanese versions. I think all the text is Japanese, but all the voice acting's in English.
Hmm.
And I remember reading in a PlayStation magazine at the time, it's because English was considered very cool in Japan.
Yes, I've heard that
Um,
as well. Yeah, it's got a certain appeal to it, just speaking
yeah,
English. Yeah.
yeah. So I
Hmm.
wonder if that's. And I can see that because I think I think any kind of bilingual ability is cool
Mm.
personally, but if I think I'd love to be able to speak and read Japanese.
Oh
I'd
yeah,
find I'd
absolutely.
find that very cool. So there's no reason why it shouldn't work in
Yeah,
reverse, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah, absolutely. Um, the game itself, I mean, just sort of talking about on a more technical level, I think I really like the just the level design of the game.
Yeah.
It was very varied. You
Mm.
would get a fairly linear level that had a lot of very traditional platforming sections, and then you'd have a lot of time you had to find like a key to unlock a door.
Okay.
You have to go on a separate route. You'll come against the door. You have to go on a separate route, find a key, come back. A little bit of backtracking. Um, there was even one level where you had to backtrack almost back to the beginning of the level once you've turned on the big wheel. Do you remember that level?
Oh yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of got stuck on that bit. I couldn't figure out
Yeah.
where to go on that one. And I made in my notes. There's which one was it? Oh, it's level 6-1, which is the last level, the first
I'm
part of
gonna
that
say
level.
that's very late in the game because there's seven stages in total, I think, isn't there?
But the six proper ones. There's also a bonus one at the end, which I didn't
Yeah.
get. Which I we spoke briefly before we started recording. Um, I emulated this game, and I really wanted to get through it for the podcast because I really found myself enjoying it. But I was running out of time. I had to start saving and loading state like a madman, basically, because it does get pretty tough this game. So I kind of got to the very last, this last boss, and it kind of kept coming. And I thought, oh, well, I'm saving and loading so often, I'm not really playing this game anymore. So I ended up looking it on YouTube, and there is like a secret bonus level at the end that looks ridiculously hard. But anyway, 6-1 was almost, I found it almost like a, this term is thrown around for everything these days, but a Metroidvania, in the sense that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had like coloured blocks everywhere that weren't moving, and you had to go around the level. The level was made up of various different rooms, and you had to hit that. You had to find the gemstone that was matched that colour to release all the blocks. And then you could go back and then go to different routes and get
Hmm.
another gemstone to unlock more areas. And there's a very intricate kind of map of that level, and I thought that was really cool as well.
Yeah.
And the Eclipse one as well, 5-2, I've got written there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 5-2, 5.
That was a
Yeah.
really cool thing. It's very simple, but it worked really well.
Hmm.
Basically, you're in a level where there's an eclipse constantly going on and off in the sky, and when everything goes dark, the enemies become invincible,
Yeah.
but platforms become usable. And it's just this constant playing with that mechanic, constant switching back and forth, constant. You have to do things quickly in time before the darkness hits in order to trigger various mechanics to progress. And there was something really satisfying about that, to appreciate from a level design perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, things like that really struck me. It was mechanically very sort of sanguine. I mean, platformers these days are when 2D platformers are often very good in that sense. You look at like the Nintendo ones, like the Mario games, the
Hmm.
Yoshi's, the Raymans as well. They're very good at introducing new mechanics for a level and then maybe not even using them again.
Yeah.
Just every level, new mechanics, new mechanics. This game isn't quite like that, but it's kind of. I don't know. It still holds its own against them, despite that. It's very good at introducing these things very gradually and making it feel like it never feels repetitive. It never feels like
No, it doesn't.
you're playing the same thing. You're doing the same thing over and over again. You kind of are, but there's just something about the way it introduces new enemies gradually, new ideas gradually. And it just feels
Hmm.
like it's constantly feeding you with new things that you don't expect, and then just chucking in one of these levels that's completely arranged completely differently to what you're expecting. And I think that's just one of the sort of the nuances of the game that I particularly picked up on.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the key to it, isn't it? When you said essentially it is repetitive. You are doing the same things over and over again,
Mm,
but it doesn't feel like it.
yeah,
I think if you think Sonic, what we talked about earlier, that's Sonic all over. I mean, the original Sonic game, you are basically doing the same thing over and over again, but
yeah.
it never feels
No,
repetitive.
I think that.
And you can apply that to any. If you think of any of your favorite games,
Yeah,
I think that's what elevates a game into something being something special. When you
definitely.
realize that, you're basically doing the same task, but you want to do it.
It's a fine balance between keeping the mechanics the same, because if you keep changing them, then as in the actual control of the characters, if you keep changing it throughout the whole game just for the sake of variety, you're going to get confused. Going to cause confusion. But if you keep those mechanics, but keep changing them in such a way that you feel like you're using them in different ways, that's the mark of a real game. That's the fine line you've got to get in gameplay, really, just to simplify. If you were to simplify it,
Yeah.
And this game does it, to a T, very, very, very successfully. The bosses were tough but interesting as well.
Yeah.
I particularly liked the one where you're on like a swinging log kind of bridge, and it swings back and forth into the background where the boss is at the back, and you've got to grab a character from the foreground and hold him while it swings, dodge obstacles that are sort of there as you sort of swing underneath them, and kind of move towards the boss and throw an enemy at him. That was quite a cool one.
Yeah. And I like it. They're quite old school sensibilities for the bosses, aren't they? They're very pattern based, and I like that. There's working out. Once you've worked out the pattern, there's not much luck involved in it. If you lose, it's because you haven't learned the pattern properly, or
exactly.
you've tried to rush it through, or it really encourages you to get skillful with the mechanics that the game is giving you to use. And I that's, like I say, it's just really an old school approach to it, rather than what other games were doing around the same sort of time.
For the time, you think it takes these old school ideas and this sort of really sort of sound kind of platforming that's been around for years at that point, and just moves it into the third dimension, I guess, with loads of new ideas, particularly involving the foreground and the background, using that third dimension to bring things in, making you hit things in the background, moving into another plane of level and into the background, stuff like that. At the time, it must have felt quite fresh, because I don't think there were many 2.5D games around at that time.
I think there were a couple. I mean, the other big major one around the same time, not that I think it was probably a couple of years earlier, was Pandemonium.
Yeah, that's the one I remember at the time.
Yeah, that was the other big. That was the sort of the flagship 2.5D, and there was another one called, a relatively obscure one called Wild 9, which was made by the same team that did Earthworm Jim.
Oh, really? I don't think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, we might have to cover that in a later show. That's well worth playing. And that was a kind of 2.5D that came after. I think that would have been sort of 99. I don't know, but there wasn't much going on in 2.5D compared to the big craze was making everything 3D, free roaming kind of style platforming.
Yeah, it was all about exploring. A very literal 3D
collectathons, and
it was that was popular, and it was just sort of, it was taking those baby steps into moving around, roaming around in free roaming, which at the time was jaw dropping. But you remember Mario 64? I mean, it was worlds away from anything you've experienced at the time. But,
well, I was gonna make that comparison then when you said how it takes sort of the old school ideas and brings them into the sort of modern style. It kind of, I'd put it in the same kind of innovation stakes as Mario 64 in that kind of thing. I think they just took it, whereas Mario 64 went into the full 3D kind of thing. Klonoa took those ideas and evolved them more, keeping the 2D style. I don't really know. I don't know how to articulate exactly what I mean. But
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's interesting to see all those different early platformers and see they all went in separate directions to sort of tackle this 3D issue that was becoming relevant.
Yeah,
it seemed, from what I've read and what I've heard about the developers at the time, they didn't really know. They had all this technology and had all these ideas, and they knew they had to start pushing 3D, but they didn't necessarily know what the best way of doing it was, so they had to come up with all these things. I think you remember the game Croc.
Yeah,
that was like a 3D platform that had like sort of tank controls, didn't it?
It did, yeah. That was one of the first PlayStation games I got, actually.
Yeah, it was a very early one, wasn't it? And I never played it at the time, but I remember quite liking the look of it. But that is interesting. I think I read that somewhere that they pitched that to Nintendo as a Yoshi
Yeah, that
game.
that, that was going to be a Yoshi. I think that was going to be a Yoshi racing game
Oh,
originally, and then
really? Okay.
then it evolved into like
Yeah.
a platformer, and
It,
then
it's just interesting because that was, I believe, it was being made at the same time as Mario 64, and obviously Mario 64 kind of invented the rule book of 3D moving around in a 3D space, whereas that kind of did it so maybe they didn't have as much capabilities, technology wise or manpower wise or whatever as Mario did, or the inspiration. But it's just interesting to see the different takes on 3D that all these companies had. And then Klonoa, I think it came out a bit later, in fairness, but still they were still very experimental at that stage. I think in
yeah,
'98.
yeah. I think it's still very innovative, but just in a different direction. Is I think what I
Yeah,
was trying to fumble out of my mouth.
yeah, no, absolutely, totally. Yeah. It reminded me the general. This is a different aspect actually, but the general look of it reminded me a lot of Knights.
Yes, yeah,
It's
I can see
again
that.
another game about dreams. There was definitely
Yeah,
a similar kind of visual quality to it
yeah,
that
definitely.
struck me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, thinking about it, I'd be surprised if that wasn't an influence. Actually, definitely on some of the art style
yeah.
does have a.
Knights came out the year
Um,
before, so it could well have been.
yeah, I mean, even the first level, the caverns you go into on the first level, they've got a very dreamlike sort of nightsy quality to
They
them,
do.
and so yeah,
Hmm.
that'd be quite interesting to. I'd be interested to see if there was an actual
Hmm.
influence there.
Quite possibly, yeah. Yeah.
So,
Is there anything you didn't like about the game?
I could have done with being a little bit longer, maybe.
Hmm. Well, I wouldn't say that because
It-
I tried to really cram it in for the podcast. But if I were playing it leisurely, yeah, possibly. Could have done with maybe one
yeah,
extra
I'm gonna
level.
say
Yeah.
maybe an extra level.
That said, the levels are quite sort of satisfyingly chunky. They're not
Yeah,
like over in 5 minutes necessarily, or even three
no,
minutes. Or they'll, especially the more complicated ones, will take you a fair old while if you, especially if you keep dying on them.
yeah.
Um,
Um, no, I mean, you can find fault with anything if you think about it hard enough.
yeah,
Um, my initial instinct is I can't think of anything that jumps out to me as being a major fault with the game.
yeah.
I'd like it to be a little bit longer just because I liked it and I would like more of it.
I mean that's a good problem to have in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say as problems go, that's not a bad one to
Yeah,
have.
I've only got yeah.
No,
Anything
no,
else?
no, 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 you carry
I've
on.
only got two written down, and
Hmm.
again they're fairly minor. One of them was the sort of hit flash, like the temporary invincibility you get after being hit, wasn't very long, which wasn't
Okay.
as long as perhaps I would have. I mean, it's just a thing you kind of get used to, and to be fair, it didn't really hinder me too much. But I think early on, at least, I was expecting it to be little bit more forgiving, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
And the music is fine, but it's not great generally,
Ooh.
I would say.
Ooh.
No, no, you disagree?
Ooh. Yeah, I do. I disagree with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like the first level. First level is a great, very,
Oh
very
yeah,
catchy theme.
you're very catchy. Yeah.
But after that, I didn't find myself drawn to many other pieces. But that is just listening to it firsthand. The first time I hear them, and that happens with a lot of
There
music.
are.
I often end up liking music more than the first time heard it.
I
But
think I
yeah,
think definitely the first level's the standout piece of the
yeah,
game.
as well it should
Um.
because it's really got to
Yeah.
grab you in. Yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah. It's we keep making Sonic references, I suppose, but that's
Mm,
because it's such a touchstone for platform games, before and since. But it's kind of, everyone remembers Green Hill Zone.
yeah.
If you've never played any other level or Sonic or whatever, if you know Sonic, you know Green Green Hill Zone, and I
Mhm.
think so. Your first level does have your first introduction to the game musically does need to be catchy and make an impact. So it does make sense that the first level would be, they put their best foot forward.
Yep.
But yeah, the first track is definitely the standout. There are a few forgettable tracks on it, but on the whole, I really enjoyed the soundtrack. I don't know if I would
Okay.
listen to much of it outside of the game, though. I
Well,
suppose you're right in that
that's the
sense.
thing. I mean, as I said earlier, I like to collect game music and listen to it outside. I don't actually listen to much music that isn't game music, to be honest, because I'm
Hmm.
not that into the music industry. But uh, it's fine in the let me clarify. It is perfectly fine in the game itself. It fits really well. It doesn't get annoying. It's not repetitive. It works. It's great. It's quite well produced. It's just that takeaway aspect. A lot of it isn't, I guess, my kind of the thing that I would enjoy listening to.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, I like sort of quite catchy, quite clear melodies. And this isn't, with the exception of the first one and maybe a couple of others. This isn't. It's more kind of, I don't know, atmosphere. It doesn't try and stand out, is what I would say about it.
Mm.
It doesn't kind of jump out and like Sonic. In any level, you will notice the music as much as anything else, I would say.
Yeah.
But in this, it takes a back seat to the gameplay, which you could argue is a valid thing to do anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but
that's the only thing.
again, if that's the two sort of criticisms you level at it, then I think that's a sign of a good game. I think if that's the worst you can say about it, then you're on for a winner, aren't you?
Yeah. So I think it's fairly clear that we'd recommend this. In case you hadn't worked out already, I think we'll both recommend this game.
Well, but yeah, I thoroughly recommend it. There are a lot of other games in the series.
Yeah.
I say a lot of others.
Yeah,
there's
touch on some of them,
there's a sequel on the PS2. Won't say too much about it because I think that might be worth us definitely covering in a future episode.
I having played this game, I do really want to pick that up because I've tried it on my PS2 emulator on my PC, and it doesn't. It's okay, but it's not perfect. So it's something I would look to get picking up. It's not as expensive as the first one, but for a PS2 game, it is still a little bit pricey.
Yeah,
I think CEX is doing it for 25 quid. I think
that's not too bad. That's not too bad.
And there is one in the CEX near me, so I might swing by and pick it up.
It's well worth it. If you enjoyed the first one, you're gonna you will enjoy the second one.
That's
so,
yeah.
There's also a beach volleyball game.
Yes,
which is a
I
bit
saw
of an
this. This is it anything like Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball?
No,
I'm not
it's
interested. Go on.
No, there's much more volleyball in it than Dead or Alive.
just as I am.
And there's a couple of Game Boy Advance spin-offs as well, which are basically they're kind of the same thing, but just on the Game Boy Advance. So they're worth having a go at as well.
Yeah.
They've dropped in price considerably actually since when I first looked at getting those, like way back when I was got my first Game Boy Advance. They were quite pricey. I mean, they were sort of around the same sort of level as what Klonoa for the PlayStation is now, and they seem to have really dropped. I mean, when I last checked,
that's odd.
I don't know. I mean, maybe Game Boy Advance isn't a big console to collect for at the moment, because it's very easily emulated. So maybe people who are, but I mean, you can pick them up. The prices tend to be sort of £10-20 at the moment.
Really?
So that surprised me when I looked into that, to be honest. And I think there's some other games as well on there's like an RPG game I think it's for the Wonder Swan.
Yes.
That's never been translated, and it's not like the original where only the names are in Japanese. It's Japanese start to finish. So unless you're fluent, then there's no point picking it up. So I can't say whether that one's good or bad. Hopefully one day someone will patch it into English, but given the amount of work that's involved in those translation patches, I don't know if anyone's that passionate about Klonoa to put the effort in, I'm afraid. But
well, I mean,
one can hope.
It struck me as, having never really got into the series before and sort of being sort of aware of it on the periphery, it struck me as something that's a bit sort of cultish, in that I think some people are fairly passionate about it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I think
it seems like the kind of game that would be the case for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's developed a cult following over the years. Definitely, I think it's one of those games where anyone who's played it likes it, but just more people need to play it. I think.
Yeah, that's the thing. They need to bring it back somehow. Do a new version or re-release it. Well, I mean, the thing is, they've already re-released it on the Wii, so but they could port that.
Yeah, they re-released it on the Wii, and it sold even worse than the
Oh,
the
that's a shame.
original one.
That's
So
such a shame. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're aware that there's an audience for it.
Yeah.
There's still Easter eggs in Namco games with Klonoa as a hidden character, as an unlockable,
Yeah.
and there's, they know that people like the games and they like the character, but
Yeah.
whether they'll see fit to give us a new
Mm.
sort of current generation game for it, I don't know.
It's a
I would
shame
hope
because it
they
would be
would.
so good on like the Switch, wouldn't
On the
it? It would
Switch,
be
it'd be
such at
amazing.
home.
It'd be perfect.
It doesn't have to be a big game either, like almost like the PS1, almost with like 2D graphics on 3D, but just sort of modern and really kind of, you know, lovely. That would be amazing.
Yeah,
I'd be, I mean, I think it would find a new audience really for people because people, I think those kind of games are popular now.
yeah,
If
yeah.
it's
I mean,
marketed and it gets out to people and that they see it, you know, I think it could, it needs to. It's just a shame that they seem to have tried quite a few times and it never quite hit the mark. But I don't know. Now it might be different. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not sure anyone from Namco would listen to this podcast. I'm not sure how that would happen if they did, but let's say they did.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, I bought Sonic Mania 3 times.
True. You did.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I buy Klonoa 3 times, but I'm just saying, if you were to release it and you're worried about the sales figures,
Yeah. Yeah. You got three right there.
Tips will
Basically.
buy it 3 times. Just feed it up the chain, you know. But yeah, so okay,
Maybe we could
so
make a list of games and there's like, yeah, Tibbs will buy that 3 times, Tibbs will buy that 3 times, and just get all these games made because you're multiplying it by 3 at least, at the very
yeah,
least.
exactly. I'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll be my pledge. Release Klonoa on the Switch, and I will buy 3 copies on day one. I don't know how I'll afford it. I'll figure it out.
You'll get there. It might not all
I'll
be
get
at
there
once.
somehow.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it might not all be at once, but it will be.
I'll buy 3 copies over the span of 25 years. I'll pledge that much. Okay. Well, I like you say. I think it's quite clear that we give this one our full recommendation. So there's plenty of ways to pick it up. I think it's like £3.99 if you don't mind the digital only version, despite our protestations of digital distribution earlier.
Yeah.
You can pick it up for 15 quid, and if you want the proper Western release, you sort of 60 or 70 quid, and it's yours. And whichever way you decide to play it,
Yeah.
give it a chance, and
I think the
let
Wii
us know how you get on.
I think the Wii one's about 45.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's still
but
quite pricey.
it's still, yeah, but it's achievable. It's not like
It's not.
it's not Panzer Dragoon Saga, is it?
No, I mean it might be. Give it an emulate if you like it. Pick it up.
Oh yeah,
I think I might do that with the sequel. I reckon.
yeah.
I'm definitely thinking about it. Yeah. Anyway, well that wraps that up.
Yes.
Nicely, I think so.
So I'm
yeah. Go
gonna
on.
choose the game for our next show.
Yes, and you hinted last time that it was a Nintendo DS game. Is that correct?
It is a Nintendo DS game, and it's a game that it's another game that I feel very, very passionately about, and I'm really excited to share it with someone because it's one of these games that I talk about so often, and I keep trying to get people to play it, and I don't know if anyone does. So
Yeah.
I feel like I've got a captive audience now,
Okay.
and I can force you to play it.
Well, you're going to force at least me to play it, so that's
Yeah. Well, hopefully,
if that's all
if
you do,
anyone's-
then you've achieved your objective.
Yeah. And if to people listening, if you don't play any other game that I ever recommend, just play this
Oh,
one.
okay.
Okay,
Go on then.
it is a game called Ghost Trick Phantom Detective.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of it?
No, I think you tweeted about it somewhat recently. I
tr-
couldn't remember
I-
the name of the title, to be honest, and I thought this one, whatever that game was, I thought it might be this, and I have a feeling it's that. But anyway, carry
Yeah,
on. What?
I tweet about it a lot
Okay.
from time to time. It's an amazing game as far as I'm concerned, and I really it's kind of a puzzle. a sort of a puzzle adventure game. It's got point and click elements, but it's
Hmm.
also got sort of heavy puzzle elements as well. It's unlike any other game I've played.
Okay.
Um, it's by the same gentleman who did the Phoenix Wright series of games. I don't know if
Mm.
you've ever played any of the Phoenix Wright
I
games.
haven't. It's on my list.
I'm sure we'll cover them
Mm.
on a future episode. But yeah, I adore it. So
Okay.
I'm hoping you will get a lot out of it too. So
Cool.
that's gonna be my selection. Ghost Trick Phantom Detective.
Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. I will get right on that. I'm going to, although I have a DS, I'm going to emulate it because I cannot look at a DS before it will burn my
Yes.
eyes. And that's not the fault of the
That's
DS, that's the
not.
fault of my eyes. They do
That's
everything with a portable screen, does it, sadly.
oh, that's horrible.
It's horrible, yeah. I mean, I commute 2 days a week now, and the amount of switch time that I'm missing out on just because of this
Yeah.
stupid eye condition is just, it depresses me.
Is he what? Even with a screen like the size of the Switch, is that?
Oh yeah, it seemed I don't really understand it, to be honest, but I'm okay with it seems to be any thin screen. So so that's obviously a type of screen because I can look at a computer monitor that's like a thicker one, like a slightly older
Hmm.
one, or even a TV, just a regular TV. I haven't had any problems with any particular TV that I've found, but anything that's like a laptop screen, a phone screen, um, the Switch, the DS, 3DS, anything like that. I get as soon as I start looking at it, the muscles around my eyes start spasming out,
That's
and if
strange.
I look at it for too long, my my whole eye area will like ache for like a week, 2 weeks. I'm not joking.
Do you think it's like the refresh rate or?
I don't know. It could be. I think it's blue light because it does.
Ah,
Like I put the blue light filter on my phone, and it doesn't
yeah.
completely alleviate it, but it means if I'm not still recovering from a previous episode, I can look at my phone for 5 minutes and it'd be fine with the blue light filter on. If I have it off, they'll go nuts.
That's so
So I
strange.
know it's really really annoying. I mean it's a relatively recent. I mean it's been there in the background for quite a few years, but last couple of years it's really yeah knocked me out.
Oh man, that's horrible.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sitting. I've got my
Well,
laptop in front of me because I'm downstairs, but I've got the screen off,
yeah.
and
Well,
I can only use it to like set it up, and then I have to turn it off.
I hope this choice doesn't give you too much discomfort.
No, I don't think I'll emulate it up,
Yeah,
and it'll be fine.
cool. Okay, well,
Wow, this is quite a long one, but I hope you've all enjoyed it.
yeah, we've had a lot to say.
Hmm.
I think we've covered some good topics. So I think we've covered some good ground today.
Yeah,
So
I think we
um,
have. I think this is our best episode yet, personally.
yeah, I was really excited to talk about Klonoa, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk about Ghost Trick on the
Mm.
next episode.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm having fun with this at the moment. I hope other people are too.
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, so this tends to be a monthly thing.
Mm.
I would like. I think we should try and I think we should try and complete Ghost Trick before we talk about it because it is
Okay.
one of those games where I think it's best appreciated as a whole rather than it's not one of those things where you can play a couple of levels
Mm.
and oh, I've got the feel of it now. I think we need
Right.
to we need to try and get through it if we can.
How long is it typically?
I think I think we could easily do it if we say an episode in 3 or 4 weeks. I think we could easily do it by then.
Okay. I mean,
Um,
hours wise, what would you say?
Hours wise, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've given it a full playthrough, but I
Okay.
wouldn't say it's more than sort of 6 hours,
Oh,
seven
okay,
hours.
that's fine. Yeah, that's I
You
should be
know,
able to do that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
okay. Yeah, cool. All right.
Yeah, and between now and then, we'll have to have a conversation about our stance on spoilers, because that's going to be a major aspect of the
Well,
next discussion. So we'll have to decide
okay.
where we stand on that.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm more than happy to not spoil if you are.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I think especially, I think some games, it really would detract from some games if you did spoil it for people. I think
yeah.
some of the joy of certain games is to experience these things firsthand, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
and being that our show is about sharing our love for games,
Yeah.
I don't want to deprive people
Oh
from
no.
these moments. So
Yeah. I mean, we will know what a spoiler is and what isn't,
oh
what
yeah,
we can
yeah,
say.
definitely,
It's just it's fine. But we also
yeah.
do need to have a discussion, probably lengthier than that, about our intros. we we really need to do something. I don't know what though.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what do other podcasts do?
They
Like
do vary. They often have like a little
sponsorships by mattresses and things.
yeah, they'll have a little 30-second kind of recorded thing with a bit of music and a bit of welcome to the Pod'em Up podcast pre-recorded thing. But
Yeah.
then that still leaves what we could say after that, really. So I don't know. Some of them start and say the exact same thing, pretty much, and that kind of works. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
I think we'll just get better as we go along.
yeah.
We're still newbies at this.
Yeah, we are. We are, to be fair. It's surprisingly difficult to just suddenly, right, okay,
It is.
right.
It's really difficult to sort of
It,
jump into presenter mode and kind of just
yeah,
go, yeah. There's
yeah.
the one of the ones I was thinking about where they do the same thing is the retro hour, and that is a very very professionally done podcast, probably the most professional one in the kind of retro gaming scene. I'd give it a listen because it's by I think the main guy who does it is like a professional radio kind of DJ guy, and you can tell he's right on the money. He knows exactly
Yeah.
what to say, knows how to say it. I'm not saying we can emulate that, but it's worth a listen just the intro alone because he kind of
Yeah.
it kind of sums it up quite nicely.
Yeah, well, like you say, we'll get there. We'll. I think every episode so far has been slightly better than the one that came before it
I
in
think
terms
so.
of sound quality and production. So as
Yeah.
long as that trend continues, we'll be in a good place, I
Well, in
think. But
theory, as long as it continues, we'll be the best podcast on earth.
oh, absolutely.
Eventually,
That's just a matter of time.
it'll
I
take us
mean,
about 1,000 or so, but
oh yeah, that's inevitable.
yeah.
But for now, we shall bid you good day, and please, if you feel like joining in on the next podcast, if you want to play along with us, get yourself a copy of Ghost Trick and send us your thoughts on Twitter. Our email address is the same as it ever was, podemup@gmail.com.
Yep.
We're at Podemup at Twitter,
Mhm.
and any comments, queries, suggestions, anything at all, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we really would. We'd love to get some communication back with you guys. If you're listening and you listen to a few podcasts and you sort of never really go back to you talk back to the guys behind it, have a go with us because if you come back with us, tell us something, we'll probably include it in the next podcast.
Oh
About
yeah,
that.
yeah, almost certainly.
You'll be immortalized forever in podcast form. And who
Yeah.
can turn that down?
Well, yeah, that's an offer you can't refuse, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, goodbye for now, and we shall see you again in 3 or 4 weeks. And yeah, looking forward to it already.
Awesome. See you guys. Bye bye.
Bye.